The airport buzzed with the usual chaos, boarding announcements echoing over the speakers, wheels of carry-ons rattling against the tile, and impatient sighs filling the air like background music. Among the crowd stood a sharply dressed man, in his early 40s, calm and composed, even as the world around him moved in frantic rhythms. His name was Darius Cole. In his perfectly tailored charcoal gray suit with a sleek black duffel over his shoulder and an expensive watch peeking out from his cuff, Darius looked every bit the image of quiet success. But at this moment, none of that mattered. He was standing in front of the first-class boarding gate, boarding pass in hand, ticket clearly marked first class. But the gate attendant, a young man with a stiff smile and forced politeness, was blocking his way. "Sir, this line is for first class only," the attendant repeated, eyes barely meeting Darius's. "I know," Darius replied calmly, holding up his boarding pass. "That is my seat." The attendant glanced at the pass for a fraction of a second, then shook his head. There must be a mistake. Behind Darius, a few passengers began to murmur. Some checked their phones. Others whispered while casting glances his way. The kind of glances that said everything without saying a word. A middle-aged couple was waved through with a warm smile. A man in golf clothes, still reeking of country club cologne, barely slowed down as the attendant nodded him along. But Darius, who had paid more than enough for that ticket, was now being questioned for the second time. "I can show you the email confirmation. Or you can scan the barcode again," Darius offered, keeping his voice even. But the young man simply pressed a button on his walkie-talkie and spoke in a hushed tone. "Supervisor to gate 14, please." Darius let out a slow breath, not because he was surprised, but because it had happened before, too many times in too many ways. But what the gate staff did not know, could not know, was who Darius really was, and what one phone call could do. Darius Cole was not just a businessman. He was the CEO of a major investment firm, a self-made multimillionaire, and a man who had quietly bought out 3 airlines over the last 6 years. The airline he was currently standing in front of, he had acquired a stake in it just 6 months ago, under a holding company name that no one in that gate area would recognize. But none of that mattered to the people staring him down. To them, he was just another black man standing where they did not think he belonged. The supervisor arrived, a woman in her 40s with a clipboard, fake smile, and a forced tone of customer service professionalism. "Sir, I understand there's some confusion," she began, motioning him slightly away from the line, as if his presence was causing a disturbance. "There is no confusion," Darius said, holding up his phone. "My name is Darius Cole. My seat is 2A first class. You can scan this again if you like." She glanced at the screen. Her smile faltered. She stepped back, typing something rapidly into her tablet. There it was. His name, his seat, his status. But even then, her words made it clear she was looking for an out. "I'm sorry, Mr. Cole, but it appears there may be an issue with the reservation system. We've had some technical problems today." Darius tilted his head slightly. "Interesting, because the last 3 people before me had no issue boarding." The pause between them grew longer. The whispers behind him grew louder. Some people pulled out their phones. Others just stood and watched like it was some kind of performance. And then, without another word, Darius pulled his phone from his coat pocket, stepped aside, and made a call. Not to customer service. Not to a travel agent. But directly to the airline's chairman, a man who answered on the first ring. "Mark," Darius said, voice calm but firm, "we have a situation, and what happened next would change everything." The gate went silent. The attendants froze. Within minutes, the flight was halted, boarding stopped, and security appeared. Not to remove Darius, but to escort someone else away from the counter. The gate staff began whispering into headsets, faces pale. The flight, the staff, even the operations team inside the airport had no idea who they were dealing with until that moment. And just like that, the man they denied was now the man with all the power. But this was not just about revenge. Not to Darius. This was about something far deeper, a lesson, a reckoning, and the start of something much bigger. Because once the call ended and the consequences started rolling in, it was clear this would be more than just a moment. It was the beginning of a story that would shake the airline industry. And Darius was just getting started. Darius Cole stood to the side, calmly placing his phone back in his jacket pocket. He did not need to raise his voice. He did not need to cause a scene. That was never his style. Power, he had learned, was quiet. It did not shout. It whispered behind doors, moved through boardrooms, and waited for moments like this. The gate staff still looked confused. The young man who had first denied him was shifting from foot to foot, sweat forming near his collar. The supervisor tried to maintain her composed smile, but even her hands were trembling slightly as she flipped through her tablet, hoping the screen might somehow change the facts. Passengers were watching now. Some had stopped scrolling through their phones. A few had recorded parts of the incident. A little girl nearby tugged at her father's sleeve and whispered something. The father looked at Darius, then back at the staff. Something was off, and everyone could feel it. But none of them knew who he really was. To the world, Darius Cole was a quiet success. He was not the kind of CEO who ran flashy ads or sat for talk show interviews. He did not need to. Behind the scenes, he controlled investments across multiple industries, banking, logistics, energy, and yes, even aviation. His rise had not been accidental. It was the result of sleepless nights, failures he never talked about, and a childhood where every door had been closed to him until he learned how to build his own. Back in Detroit, he had been just another kid from the East Side. No connections, no safety net, just a sharp mind and a mother who worked 2 jobs to keep the lights on. She always told him, "They might not see your worth, baby, but you show them your value anyway." And Darius had lived by those words every single day. He got into college on a scholarship, the only one in his neighborhood to leave the block that year. Then he went on to build his first company in his 20s. Failed, rebuilt, failed again, but he kept going, kept learning. He knew how the world worked. He knew how people judged you by skin, by looks, by what they thought success was supposed to look like. And that was fine, because he had learned how to move in silence, until moments like this, moments where silence was not enough. He could feel the energy in the air shift as 2 men in dark suits appeared near the gate, speaking into earpieces. They were not TSA and they were not security. These were company men, internal operations, the kind of people who showed up only when something had gone very wrong. They did not look at the passengers. They walked straight toward the supervisor, showed her a badge, and began speaking quickly. Darius could not hear everything, but he caught enough. Chairman's direct instruction, full investigation, compliance issue. The gate agent who had questioned him tried to speak but was gently nudged aside. He looked like a deer caught in headlights. Passengers started whispering louder. Now. Something was definitely going on. First-class boarding had been suspended for almost 10 minutes. A group of executives near the front looked visibly irritated. One of them muttered something under his breath and shook his head. Darius took a slow breath and watched. He was not angry. He had learned a long time ago that anger was a trap, one they expected him to fall into. They wanted the outburst. They wanted the yelling, because that gave them a reason to dismiss you. But Darius never gave them that satisfaction. Still, under the calm surface, something was brewing, because this was not the first time. It had happened before, in restaurants, hotel lobbies, even corporate meetings. Times when people decided he was out of place before he said a single word. Times when the stares said, "You do not belong here." But what they never understood was that Darius had worked too hard, climbed too high, and sacrificed too much to ever let them define his worth. This time, though, was different, because this time the world was watching. Phones were still up. Someone had already posted a short clip on social media. Darius did not need the attention. He did not care about the clicks or the headlines, but he knew how quickly narratives spread. And he also knew what happened when truth finally cut through the noise. One of the men in suits approached him now. "Mr. Cole," he said respectfully, extending his hand. "We apologize for the misunderstanding. We're working to correct it immediately." Darius nodded but did not smile. "I appreciate that." The man leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. "I just want to assure you, the chairman is taking this matter very seriously. We're looking into all aspects of the situation." Darius met his eyes. "Good. Because this isn't just a misunderstanding, it's a pattern." The man nodded, clearly understanding more than he let on. "We'll be in touch within the hour." Darius stepped back, eyes moving over the gate area once more. A part of him wanted to let it go. Just take the seat, fly to New York, handle the next deal and move on. But another part, the part that remembered his mother's words, the part that had fought for every inch of progress, knew this was bigger than one flight. Because if it could happen to him, a man with ownership in the very airline denying him boarding, then what about the people without that kind of power? What about the ones who did not have a chairman on speed dial? And that was the question that would not let him rest. The flight was now delayed, and the announcement over the speaker confirmed it. "Attention passengers, Flight 178 to JFK will be departing later than scheduled. Please remain near the gate for updates." People groaned. Some blamed the airline. Others looked around, trying to piece together the cause of the delay. A few looked directly at Darius, still not sure who he was, but knowing he was at the center of something important. As Darius sat in one of the nearby chairs, his phone buzzed. It was a message from someone inside the company, a screenshot, an internal chat log, words that made the pit of his stomach twist, not with surprise but with a deep, cold confirmation. It read, "Some VIP guy trying to act important. No way he belongs in first class, probably upgraded himself or something. Just stall until we figure it out." The name on the message matched the gate agent. Darius stared at the screen. The pieces were all falling into place. The delay, the refusal, the fake technical excuse. They had not just made a mistake. They had made a choice. And now they were about to find out what that choice would cost. But Darius was not going to yell. He was not going to threaten. That was not how he operated. Instead, he simply began typing, a message of his own, one that would go straight to the company's legal team, PR office, and board of directors. The gate was quiet now. Suspense hung in the air like fog, and what happened next would not just be a flight delay. It would be the first domino in a story, much, much bigger. Darius stared at the message on his phone a moment longer, his fingers tightening slightly around the edges of the device. That line, "No way he belongs in first class," kept echoing in his mind. It was not new. It was not shocking. But it was real, blatant, typed by someone who had no idea who he was, yet felt bold enough to assume everything about him based on a single glance. He looked up, scanning the terminal. The gate area was quiet now, passengers whispering in small groups, some still glancing over at him from time to time. A few had caught the tension and started connecting the dots. Others were just irritated about the delay, oblivious to the bigger story forming right in front of them. Across the terminal, the young gate agent who had triggered the whole thing was sitting on a bench now, head down, tapping nervously on his phone. He looked rattled, like someone who realized too late that a casual assumption might carry serious consequences. But Darius was not interested in ruining someone's life over one message. That was not the point. The real issue ran deeper than one employee. He opened his email app and began drafting a message. Not one fueled by emotion, but one built on facts. He listed the time, the flight number, the interaction, and attached the screenshot. Every word was measured. Not loud, not aggressive, but undeniable. He copied the company's legal and executive teams. Then he hesitated, hovered over the send button and added one more recipient, a journalist he trusted, Someone who had written about race, power, and corporate accountability in the past. Someone who would know exactly what this moment meant. He did not send it yet. Not yet. Timing mattered. As he sat there, another figure entered the gate area. A woman in a burgundy suit, sharp-eyed, moving with purpose. She did not pause. She walked straight to the internal operations team and spoke with them quietly. Then she turned and scanned the room until her eyes landed on Darius. She approached slowly, carefully. "Mr. Cole," she said with a tone that was both respectful and cautious. "My name is Angela Park. I'm with Internal Affairs for the airline. I'd like to speak with you privately if that's all right." Darius gave a slow nod. Of course. They moved a few feet away from the main crowd, just out of earshot. "I want to first apologize for everything you've experienced today," she began. "We are investigating the incident thoroughly, but I'd like to hear your version directly." Darius studied her for a moment. Her posture, her expression. She was used to navigating tense situations, probably trained for them. Still, he sensed a genuine edge to her tone. She was not just trying to protect the brand. She wanted the truth. He told her exactly what had happened, from the first denial at the gate to the supervisor's delay, to the message he had received. She did not interrupt once, just listened. When he was done, she asked, "Would you be willing to forward me the message you received?" "I will," Darius said, "but not until I know what your team plans to do about it." She paused. "We are taking this seriously. The behavior you described violates several of our policies. But I also know this is not just about one employee. You are right, this is a pattern, and we have a responsibility to address it at the root." Darius appreciated her honesty, but even as she spoke, his mind kept circling the bigger issue. It was not just about him being blocked at the gate. It was the fact that a person like him, a black CEO, dressed like any other professional in the terminal, with credentials and a valid ticket, still triggered suspicion, still needed to prove he belonged, still needed to call someone to be taken seriously, and he wondered how many others were out there. People without the connections, people without the power to press. Pause on an entire airline. What happened to them? He glanced back at the waiting area. An older man in a blue hoodie met his gaze briefly and gave a small nod. Darius returned it. Silent recognition. A shared experience, even if they never spoke a word. Angela broke the silence. "There will be a full report filed by tonight. I'll personally follow up with you." He nodded. "I'll wait for that." As she left, his phone buzzed again. This time it was from his assistant, Marlon. "Saw a video online. Already getting traction. You want me to spin it or let it breathe?" That made Darius pause. The video. He had forgotten about the people recording. He opened one of the apps, searched for his name, and there it was. A short clip, grainy, but clear enough to see the gate agent turning him away. The title read, "Man denied first class despite ticket. Watch what happens next." Comments were already piling up, some supportive, some skeptical, some angry. He closed the app. The story was out now. No controlling it. Back near the window, a teenage boy leaned over to his mother and whispered something. The woman looked up, glanced at Darius, then at the staff. Her eyes narrowed slightly, like she was just realizing this was not about a delayed flight at all. That was the thing about injustice. It started small. A glance, a pause, a doubt. But once people saw it, once it was visible, it became harder to ignore. And now, everyone was starting to see it. Darius leaned back in his seat and exhaled slowly. He had not even boarded the flight yet, and already this one moment had peeled back layers of corporate comfort, of unspoken bias, of systems that protected the wrong people. The delay stretched into its 30th minute. More murmurs, more glances. Tension building like a storm cloud hanging over the gate. But Darius was not going anywhere. Not yet. He had work to do. The next steps would not be loud. They would not be dramatic. But they would change everything.